Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the fifth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Umeh Victor and 31 others on the urgent need to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line traversing Port Harcourt, Enugu, Maiduguri from narrow gauge rail to standard gauge rail. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Umeh Victor to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Umeh.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Umeh OFR. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, this motion is on the urgent need to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line, traversing Port Harcourt through Enugu, Makurdi through Maiduguri, from narrow gauge rail to standard gauge rail. This motion is co-sponsored by actually 34 senators. 31 are listed here. There were 3 omissions. Senator Kakashi Lawan from Borno Central, Senator Yaro Binos Davida, Adamawa South, and Senator Adeniba Francis Fadahunsi, Oshun East. Mr. President, may I proceed to present the motion, which has been outstanding for about 3 weeks now. The Senate notes that the Eastern Rail Line, which serves 4 political zones, geopolitical zones of South-South, Southeast, North-Central, and Northeast, runs from Port Harcourt through Enugu, Makurdi, Jos, Bauchi, and Maiduguri, is the longest and one of the oldest rail lines in Nigeria. The Senate also knows that a functional railway system in Nigeria will help to reduce vehicular traffic on our roads and save them from constant dilapidation. The Senate further notes that the Eastern Rail Line is the only direct link from Maiduguri to Port Harcourt Deep Sea Port for export processing activities from that flank. Aware that the federal government resolved in 2017 to modernize and standardize the Nigerian railway system by building standard gauge rail lines and the acquisition of modern coaches, both for passenger movement and goods across the country. The Senate is also aware that in 2017, the federal government borrowed a loan sum of $6.8 billion, United States dollars, for standardization and modernization of the Nigerian railways network. Further aware that in furtherance of this objective, the federal government embarked on modernization of the following rail lines: Abuja to Kaduna, Ajokuta to Itakpe to Warri, Lagos to Ibadan, Kaduna to Kano, and Kano to Maradi in Niger Republic. The Senate observes that modernization and standardization of almost all the above-mentioned rail lines have been completed or nearing completion and operational with new coaches. Port Harcourt to Maiduguri line remains the only narrow-gauge rail line in Nigeria. The Senate further observes that in April 2022, the federal government awarded a failed contract sum of $3.2 billion for rehabilitation and reconstruction of a narrow-gauge rail line instead of standard gauge rail line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, which has been vandalized, abandoned, and overgrown with weeds and trees. Pained that not only that the project failed, but the Chinese contractors partnering with the federal government on the project, who were expected to provide 85% of the expected funding program, abandoned the project without injecting any funds. Concerned that the federal government should, as a matter of necessity, national interest, and the resultant anxiety of excluding the 4 geopolitical zones which the Eastern Rail Lines covers, maintain a common developmental program for the country by taking immediate steps to build standard gauge rail line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. Worried that the federal government is missing a huge amount of revenue by the exclusion of the Eastern Rail Line in the ongoing railway standardization and modernization program, and convinced that the inclusion of the Eastern Rail Line in the current modernization and standardization program will enhance sustainable socio-economic relationships across the country and also promote national integration and ultimately boost the economy and give a sense of belonging to all. The Senate accordingly resolves to, 1, call on the federal government to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line running from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri from narrow gauge rail to standard gauge rail. 2, call on the federal government to suspend the purported planned rehabilitation of the outdated narrow gauge rail from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. 3, call on the federal government to instead make arrangements for the proper funding of the construction of standard gauge rail in the Eastern Rail Line and the acquisition of modern coaches to wit. And 3, urge the Committee on Land Transport to ensure that all the 4 geopolitical zones within the Eastern Rail Line corridor benefit from the ongoing railway standardization and modernization program of the federal government. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you to support this motion so that Nigeria will maintain a uniform policy of having railway lines that are made and run with standard gauge rail. This is the only one outstanding out of the old rail lines built by the colonial administrations in Nigeria. I so move. Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues.
Yes, distinguished Senator Baribe.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Naya Baribe, and I represent Abia South. Mr. President, there's something to be very glad about by me being an indigene of this Senate. What I mean, Mr. President, is I've been here for some time, and this particular motion and the issues surrounding it is not just new. It was here when you were minority leader of the Senate. And
Please, what did you say? That the Senate President was what?
There was a one-time minority leader of the Senate. So, Mr. President, this has been here since the 8th Senate. And one of the biggest problems that we have is that no transport minister has been able to give a reason why in modernization of rail lines built by the colonial masters in Nigeria, only the Eastern Rail Line has been ignored and sentenced to oblivion, like we have. And when I confronted the former minister, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, on why, he couldn't answer. All he said was, well, we are modernizing by just putting new rails. And I said, if it's a narrow gauge, how do you modernize a narrow gauge by bringing another narrow gauge? And there was absolutely no, I would say, rational explanation for it. So I second this motion with all amount of happiness by the fact that we now have another government that can take a look again, because it does not make sense Because our people say that when you want to share things, equity is the best way to do. You cannot have a narrow gauge in the eastern part, a standard gauge, western part, and even go back to go ahead to say you're building new rail lines that is going to transverse from Lagos to Calabar, that will be standard gauge, which will, of course, cross this particular one, which means that you cannot move coaches from one point to the other. So, Mr. President, I fully support this motion, and I urge my colleagues to make sure that all the 4 geopolitical zones on the Eastern Rail network are fully covered by a standard gauge. I know that they said that they signed a contract, but the contract is not being implemented as due. And there is now time for us to go back to the drawing board, because I come from Aba, Mr. President, and there is no rail line now. They removed the old ones and have not replaced anyone. So that gives us an opportunity. There's a right of way now. They don't need to pay for anything. The old right of way is there. All they now need to do is to just do further surveys and see how we can now put in something better for our people. I so submit.
Well, I think it's very straightforward. And if you look at it, the only thing that any other speaker here will do for the benefit of the Nigerian public will be to explain the difference between the narrow gauge and the standard gauge, so that they will understand. I think that's it. So whoever is going to speak next should be somebody who is well versed in it. So I recognize Senator Ningi, since he's still insisting that he knows the technicalities.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, my name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Center of Bauchi State. Mr. President, let me thank you most immensely for allowing this particular motion to come through. Leaders, Mr. President, write history, and this is, in my opinion, a very golden opportunity that the 10th Senate under your leadership is bringing this motion to bear. The one particular technical difference between the narrow gauge and the standard gauge. Narrow gauge is extinct. It's extinct. It's no longer in vogue. No country, Mr. Chairman, construct the narrow gauge in the entire world. So it is the standard gauge that's in place. Even the standard gauge is getting moribund because there are other superior gauges that are coming into being. The speed gauge, sir. This particular gauge on the narrow gauge will afford you to travel from Port Harcourt to Gombe to Maiduguri for 48 to 47 hours. On the standard gauge, it will reduce to almost 12 to 13 hours. On the speed gauge, it will only take 2 hours. Therefore, one of the problems associated with us as a country is that this particular line is the longest and almost the oldest, but it seems there is no political will. Probably they are looking at the money. And you could see other areas have been addressed with the standard gauge. And therefore, when the member of the motion approached some of us, not because I come from the Northeast, and not because it's the issue of the Northeast, the South, or the North Central. No, it is an issue of Nigeria as a whole. When we come together as one entity, one nation, one destiny. So, Mr. President, this is the issue. I beg you to look at this motion and take it through. Sir, one of the things that people do unconsciously or unconsciously, consciously or unconsciously, that some of these things, already the entire country is aware of what you are doing, because this motion has been in place for the last almost 15 years ago, and people are avoiding it. And even the senators will know that people will not pay attention. So by the time this motion is read, the community along this thing as enumerated by the, are feeling like they're sidelined. They're second-class citizens of Nigeria. And Mr. President, tell them, this Senate says you are not second class. You are Nigerians and we're treating you like Nigerians. Sir, this is the only line that transverses 4 geopolitical zones. And as far as 37 years ago, I was using this particular line from my place, Bauchi, to Port Harcourt, even when I was in secondary school, to visit an uncle who was in the army in Port Harcourt. Today, sir, nothing like that happens. The roads are dilapidated. And the worst roads in the entire country happens across this road, except the road between Akpabio and Kalba that I actually transverse in the course of this assignment. We can't continue, sir, to have roads, some good roads in some other areas, and some terrible, deplorable roads in others. We must be equitable. We must justify why we're here. And I'm sure, Mr. President, with our leadership, Nigerians will know that we are making a difference, especially in bringing equity and fairness to bear. Thank you very much.
So I don't think we need to debate this because I also used that rail line when I was going to interview in Nigerian military school in the early 70s when most of our colleagues were not yet born. But for those who were born, you understand that it was a thing of delight to enter from Port Harcourt. Sometimes it would stop at Aba, we would join at Aba, and from there we knew all the villages and roads and all that. It was they had express also. Express, huh? Yes, you had local and express, but even the express used to stop at Aba to pick passengers who were going to Kafanchan. From Kafanchan going all the way down to Maiduguri. It was a beautiful thing. But now that rails have been modernized, we don't want to know what happened in the past. And we don't want to know what the past ministers thought. But what is worth doing is worth doing well. I think it's important that the Senate takes a position and conveys that position to the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that would like that rail line to be modernized and by true standard gauge and not this narrow gauge. And we can complete them in segments if we don't have enough funds. We can do so in segments, but to take us back to 1942 when that thing was constructed by the colonial masters or whatever is not the best. So is there anybody that is opposed to this? We go to the prayers. Prayer 1, call on the federal government to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line traversing Port Harcourt and many cities all the way to Maiduguri from the proposed narrow gauge to standard gauge rail. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, call on the federal government to suspend the purported planned rehabilitation of the outdated and moribund narrow gauge rail from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. Those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, call on the federal government to instead make arrangements for the proper funding of the construction of standard gauge rail in the Eastern Rail Line and the acquisition of modern coaches to which and further urge the Committee on Land Transport to ensure that all the 4 geopolitical zones within the Eastern Rail Line corridor benefit from the ongoing rail constructions through standardization and modernization programs of the federal government. Those in support of prayers 3 and 4 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So let me thank additional prayer. Yes, Senator Ndubose.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President, my distinguished colleagues. My additional prayer here, if I will be allowed to explain before moving, or do I go ahead? Okay, the additional prayer here is to make life easier for citizenry. We urge the federal government to link the state capitals, including the federal capital territory, with light rails to this standard gauge that is coming up. Light rail. And that will help very tremendously. I so submit.
Any seconder? Yes, Senator Venus.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Binos Dauda Yaro. I rise to second the additional prayer as moved. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, additional prayer has been proposed that light rail systems should be consulted from state capitals, including the FCC Abuja, to link with this standard gauge proposed for the Eastern Rail Line. Those in support of this consortium of light rail say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Yeah. Senator Issa Jibrin.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, my additional prayer goes thus. Urge the federal government to identify and provide favorable terms to private investors, especially in the areas of tax concession, to encourage private-public partnership arrangement on this project. It's good.
Any seconder? Senator Abamoro.
Mr. President, thank you for this privilege. My name is Abamoro. I represent the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this additional prayer ably proposed by my colleague from Kogi East, Senator Issa Jibrin. I so second.
Senator Bamoro, please elaborate for the benefit of our distinguished brothers. What are you seconding?
Mr. President, I think a motion, additional prayer has been moved by a colleague. Is that
what you are seconding? You have mentioned what you are seconding. You said the additional prayer has been moved, so you want to second the additional prayer. So mention the additional prayer you are seconding.
And, the additional prayer that has been moved by my colleague is to the effect that liberal terms should be established for partnership, especially private-public partnership of this arrangement for the standard gauge.
Distinguished colleagues, our brother Senator Issa Jibrin has moved additional prayer that liberal terms should be established for these standard gauge negotiations, and also private-public partnership should be allowed. And this has been seconded by Senator Abamoro. Those in support of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The names have it. So, before we add more water to the motion, let me thank distinguished Senator Umeh and all those listed who moved this motion, that this motion is a national motion. The infrastructure required traverses 4 zones of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is not sectional in any way. And I think it is a motion that is patriotic. I think it's a motion that the federal government should take very seriously. And I think that I want to thank the Senate for even bringing this motion, because it will save the entirety of Nigeria. From all the way from Maiduguri, through Bauchi, through Kaduna, through Kafanchang and all that. It's really a thoroughfare that will save almost half of Nigeria. So this is a patriotic motion, a national motion, nationality in everywhere. And it's something that we think should be handled with a bit of urgency, so that we do not mistake of taking us back to the archaic days of the pre-colonial era. So I thank all of you for your contributions, and I believe strongly that the federal government will listen to the Senate and do the appropriate. Thank you.